Good to be here. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I mean it with every oomph of my being. You all know what an oomph is. You know, for me, living in just this dense physical world of matter, you hear about what's going on around the world. Things that if we responded to from the level of human emotion could solidify sadness and despair in our hearts. We hear about upheaval and conflict and problems, things that if we respond to from the level of human consciousness could cause forms of fear and anger and anxiety in our lives. Even just in our daily lives. Just being surrounded, being around people with attitudes and the beliefs and the concerns of those who choose to see only with physical eyes, who keep their ears tuned to fear and separation, who choose to respond and react to life with that fight, flight, or fright mechanism of our ancient ancestors. And, it can get to you. So I come here, just being in your presence, feeling the love and the acceptance and the support, not only of me, but of each other. And I remember who I am. I remember that I am an individual, eternal expression of God, that my essential nature is divine, that I am inherently good. And it's like a burden is lifted. I am lifted up. So we come here, and through word and through song, we remember and we celebrate what the second basic principle of unity really says. That we are each individual, eternal expressions of God. That our essential nature is divine and therefore inherently good. Let's personalize that principle for them, Kathy, shall we? I am an individual, eternal expression of God. You want to say that with me? I am an individual, eternal expression of God. My essential nature is divine. You want to say that? My essential nature is divine. Here we go. Let's take a deep breath and say this one together. I am inherently good. So being here with you, seeing the divine in you, singing the songs of about the love of God and the oneness of all life, and taking a few minutes, just a few minutes, to sit in prayer and meditation, and maybe for the first time all week to take a few deep breaths, right? And to breathe in the depth of the miracle of God expressing in and through and as each one of us. It brings me back. I'm back. I'm back to the oneness. And I become even stronger in understanding that there are no powers greater than the power of God. There are no powers other than God. There's no power in fear, no power in illness or disease, no power in lack or limitation of any kind, no power. Even though the hypnotic appeal, the fascination with the physical seems to indicate that there's an opposing power. But you and I are called to see not with physical eyes, but to see with spiritual eyes. And to hear and to listen not with physical ears to those things that tickle our egos, me, but to listen to that still small voice within. So we come here and we can just breathe. We can just be. And let go of those thoughts and those feelings of anything other than the wholeness and the goodness and the fullness and the oneness of life. We can just let that all go. Do our weekly house cleaning. We come here to do our weekly house cleaning of the kingdom within. We come here to do our weekly house cleaning of that sacred place of the Most High that is within each one of us. So talking about being able to feeling loved and supported and being able to take a few deep breaths. I could breathe a little bit easier a few weeks ago when I was away, knowing that the service was in good hands. When Team Unity, as they called themselves, led the presentation, and it was really nice. You did a really good job right from the very beginning. Very innovative, and it really was encouraging, and it showed a great understanding of unity principles, and no one's clothes fell off. So I could breathe deeply on that. But thank you, Lynn and Cindy, the tapping, that was neat. And thanks, Kat, for keeping your clothes on. And Nancy, thank you. And John, thanks for doing the music. And you all did a great job. And thank you for sharing your gifts and your talents, as well as your wisdom and your understanding. And I heard from many, many people, even before I had a chance to watch the video, that they really appreciated it and enjoyed it. So, and I could go on and on. I could go around the room and just heap praise and appreciation and gratitude for each one of you. I'm so thrilled and thankful for each one of you. Well, this month we've been talking about oneness, and our theme is the oneness of life. Our affirmation is, I behold a connection of light and love with God, myself, and all people. And we've been repeating that affirmation each week, and I presented it to you in kind of a echo type fashion, rather than having it up on the board to where the screen here, where you can just repeat words and words and try to figure out the words. You can just close your eyes and go within and internalize that affirmation as you repeat a little bit back to me. So I'd like to do that again this morning. If you feel comfortable to close your eyes and just take a deep breath and repeat, I behold a connection of light and love with God, myself, and all people. And take another deep breath and repeat, I behold a connection of light and love with God, myself, and all people. And another deeper breath and repeat, I behold a connection of light and love with God, myself, and all people. And one more time, we're going to take a deep breath, and together we say, I behold a connection of light and love with God, myself, and all people. And you can open your eyes and come back to the room when you're ready. So we're talking about oneness, being one. But actually, there are three parts to oneness. 3 in 1. The first part is that we realize and we proclaim the truth that there is only one power, one cohesive energy, one unified field, one house that cannot be divided against itself. However you want to say it, God, Spirit, the universe is self-existent. There is only one. That's the first part of oneness. And from this realization, we realize that we are one with God. That's the second part of oneness, that we are completely unified with this one presence, that we are inextricably a part of this one power, and that nothing can separate us from this unconditional love, that we are made of what God is, because there's nothing other than God from which we can be made. And it's in this place. And maybe you're feeling it even as we're talking about it. That we begin to come into ourselves. As Reverend Barbara Hadley says, we begin to own who we are. We belong to ourselves. And I call this integrated living. And by integrated living, what I mean is, well, as opposed to fragmented living. Maybe if I say fragmented living, some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Having parts of yourself that seem kind of separate, maybe even disowned, parts of yourself that are really good and parts of yourself that you've deemed bad, or some parts of yourself that you keep polished up and really shiny, and the other parts that you don't even want to talk about or think about. You might even keep things kind of separate like that. But when we realize that all we are is God in expression, God expressing in the unique way that only we can, then in a way that's never been expressed ever before in the infinity of life, then we begin to appreciate ourselves, every aspect of ourselves. We marvel at God expressing in and through and as us. And it's from this place of awe and respect and honor and appreciation that we can begin to live in an integrated way, that we can begin to bring all of it together, and we can begin to own all of ourselves and have a sense of belonging. We come to this realization that we are one with God. And then we can let go of those baseless beliefs in things like shame and guilt and blame and judgment, regret, self-criticism and insecurity. Why? Because whose life is it anyway? It's God's life. There's only one life, expressing in and through and as each one of us. And when we allow ourselves to let go of this idea of separation, then we begin to realize we're not the source of our being. We don't have to work to make things happen. God is the source of our being. We're not the activity of our being. There's an activity flowing through us. God is the activity of our being. God is the life of our being. God is the energy of our being. It's not our energy. It's the Father within that doeth the work. God is the energy of our being. God is the mind of our being. And God is calling someone right now. And when we let go of this idea of separation, when we get out of the way, then Spirit can come forward in our lives as supply and strength, wholeness and harmony and peace, all that God is. And it gets even better than that. So, like I said, there's 3 parts to oneness. The first is there's one God, God the good. The second is that we are one with this absolute goodness. The third is we are all one. One consciousness, one heart, one love, one mind, one God, expressing in 7 billion different ways. We all share in this life essence most of us call God. And this truth is found in many of the world's religions and philosophies. From the New Testament, we read, God has made of one blood all nations that dwell upon the face of the earth. Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, said, all creatures are members of the one family. From the Native American tradition, Chief Seattle said, all things are connected like the blood which unites us all. Man did not weave the web of life. He is merely a strand in it. Whatever he does to the web, he he does to himself. In the Jewish prayer book, we see this prayer. All people are your children, whatever their belief, whatever their shade of skin. From Hinduism, Vivekananda taught, the absolute is that ocean, while you and I, and suns and stars, and everything else are various waves of that ocean. Isn't that a wonderful way of putting it? And from Buddhism, perhaps you've heard of the Zen master that goes up to the hot dog vendor and says, make me one with everything. We are all one. And to acknowledge this truth is to acknowledge that God is all there is, and that God is in all people. When you come to that realization, you begin to see God in everyone you meet. There's a yogic gesture called Namaste that acknowledges the Supreme Soul in each individual. The God in me greets the God in you. I honor that place in you in which the infinite dwells. I honor that place in you in which life, truth, peace, and love dwells. When you are in that place, and I am in that place, we are truly one. It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? And you know what? That's what prayer is all about. Prayer begins with acknowledging your oneness with the divine and that you are wondrously made. The activity of prayer is to indulge your thoughts and your feelings, to love God with all your heart, soul, and mind in knowing the truth that your essential nature is divine. And from this place, then, we know the same is true for those for whom we pray. We see them, and we know them to be wondrously made. And we feel the truth that Spirit expresses in and through and as them, as all needs met, as strength and power and love, all that God is. And that leads us to the third basic principle of unity, which says we are co-creators with God, creating reality through thoughts held in mind. When we establish that connection of light and love with God, ourselves, and all people, then we become a clear channel for Spirit to come into expression in our lives and in our world. When we unite and connect in oneness, we form a powerful union, and we become whole together. We grow together. We evolve together. We transform together. Are you ready to do that this morning? I hope you are. May it be so, and so it is. Namaste. So let's just take a few minutes to let's turn down the lights, Kathy, and if you want to become comfortable and just allow yourself to think on these things. It begins by knowing the truth about yourself and who God is. If there's anything that at all, a feeling from the past or a thought of anything other than your oneness, your wholeness in God, just release that right now. Just let it go. And breathe in the wholeness, the oneness. Breathe in the truth about yourself. and open the door to a new expression. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the room.